Sometimes, the scariest thing is not what you see in others, but what you begin to see in yourself. The whispers around Maplewood had become an invisible storm. Everywhere Mark went, eyes followed him, lips pressed together in hushed judgment. What Sophie had set in motion was working, but it came at a cost she hadn't expected. For the first time in weeks, Sophie looked at herself in the mirror and hardly recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes, once soft with love, were now sharp with pain. Her smile, once effortless, was now a weapon she wore like armor. She whispered to her reflection, her voice trembling, "Who am I becoming?" And then, as if fate was determined to answer, Sophie's phone buzzed. A message. An unknown number. "You don't know me. I know what Mark's been doing." Sophie's heart stopped. Her hands shook as she read the words again and again. Someone else knew. Someone beyond whispers. Someone who might have the proof she needed. That night, Mark returned home late again. He reeked of cologne that wasn't his, and his shirt collar was slightly undone. Sophie said nothing, but her silence was like thunder in the room. Mark tried to pretend, as always. He set down his briefcase, kissed her cheek like routine, and poured himself a drink. But Sophie noticed the tremor in his hands as he lifted the glass. The mask was slipping faster now. "Rough night?" she asked, her voice calm, almost a calm. Mark glared at her, his jaw tightening. "Just tired." Sophie tilted her head, studying him, her heart breaking even as her resolve hardened. "Funny. You look like a man running from something."
"Hey."
Mark slammed the glass down, the sound echoing through the kitchen. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Sophie?" She smiled faintly, though her eyes brimmed with tears. Nothing. Yet the silence that followed was unbearable. Sophie wanted to scream, to demand answers, but she held it in, because now she had another card to play the stranger's message. The next day, Sophie agreed to meet the unknown texter. Her stomach churned as she drove to a small, dimly lit cafe on the edge of town. She kept her scarf pulled high over her face, as if secrecy would protect her heart. A woman sat waiting in the corner. Mid-30s, striking but worn, with eyes that had seen too much. When Sophie approached, the woman gave a sad, knowing smile. "You must be Sophie," she said softly. "Who are you?" Sophie's voice cracked, a mix of fear and hope. "My name is Claire," the woman whispered. "And I'm the reason your husband comes home late." The words shattered Sophie like glass hitting the floor. She felt her breath leave her body, her chest tightening until she thought she might collapse. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" Claire's eyes filled with guilt. "Because I thought he loved me, because I believed his lies, and now I see he's been using us both." Sophie's tears spilled over, her pain raw and uncontainable. "You destroyed my life." Claire shook her head, her own tears falling. "No, Sophie. He destroyed both of ours." The cafe felt suffocating. Every sound amplified. The clink of a spoon, the hiss of the espresso machine, the pounding of Sophie's heart. She wanted to hate this woman, to scream at her, but a strange wave of sorrow washed over her instead. Claire wasn't the enemy. Mark was. Claire slid a small envelope across the table. "Pictures. Proof. You'll know exactly who he really is." Sophie hesitated before taking it, her hands trembling. She felt the weight of it, heavier than any object she'd ever held. Inside were not just photographs, but the fragments of her broken trust. That night, Sophie returned home with the envelope hidden beneath her coat. She watched Mark move about the house, pretending everything was normal. He laughed at the TV, texted on his phone, hummed while pouring himself another drink. And Sophie stood in the doorway, her tears streaming silently, realizing just how much of a stranger he had become. No, not a stranger. A monster in disguise. When Mark finally noticed her, he frowned. "What's wrong now?" Sophie clutched the envelope, her voice cracking under the weight of sorrow and fury. "The better question, Mark, is what's wrong with you?" She didn't show him the proof, not yet. But she knew, deep down, that the war between them had reached a turning point, and there would be no turning back. That night, lying alone in bed, Sophie stared into the darkness. The tears kept coming, soaking her pillow, her chest aching with every sob. But underneath the grief, a fire was burning brighter than ever. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore.
8.
This was about revenge. With Claire's help, Sophie would make sure Mark paid for every single lie. If this episode broke your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this story with someone who loves emotional drama and suspense. Tell me in the comments, should Sophie join forces with Claire or use the proof alone to destroy Mark? Don't miss episode 8, where Sophie takes her first step toward revenge in the open.